Nice. So this is Spainguru's webinar. It normally takes 1.5 hours. I go quite in depth into many different details. Oh, thank you, Still. That was a hard one. And you can write your questions anytime on the chat box. And at the end, I will do my best to answer them all. Okay, so when you ask your questions, don't forget to type the question mark at the end. So the software recognizes it as a question, because then I'm going to publish them one after another, and I'm going to go through all of them. Okay. And, but of course, I won't be able to answer questions during the presentation. And I understand that many questions will be answered if the presentation is good. But it doesn't matter. If anything comes to your mind and any questions you may want to ask, just go ahead and write it on the chat. And yes, we're going to have that Q&A session at the end. And also, it normally is taking 1.5 hours, but lately there's been some proposed changes for the non-lucrative visa. So I think this one is going to be a bit longer, because there's a lot of important things to mention about the proposed changes for the renewal of the non-lucrative visa. And of course, this is the best opportunity to do it, so everyone is informed. And of course, the only thing I ask in exchange for this webinar is just, if you like it, if you think that I'm adding value with information provided in this webinar, please leave a Google review, a nice one if you can. There's a button there on top. You can see a green bar there, and there's a Google review button. It will just redirect you to the Google page of Spainguru, where you can leave a review. And of course, just stay and listen to the webinar and ask your questions. And at the end, just give me your best thoughts about this information provided. People are joining now. Normally, I start at 01 in 3 minutes. If you want to say where you guys are connecting from, please go ahead. You can do it in the chat box on the bottom right. Estelle, when we get look at the visa, and I have, of course, rented an apartment, is it easy or possible to change apartments in the 5 years before getting a permanent residency in Spain? It is possible, 100% possible. From a immigration perspective, there's absolutely no problem. The only thing is, when you go for the renewals, it is a very local thing. Each province has their own interpretations of renewal rules. So if you move, I've heard from people who did a renewal at one province and they were required something, and then they moved to another province after being approved, of course, of the first renewal, and then they were asked for other different things because now they were in a different province. So, of course, that's not the case if you move within the same province. So yeah, but it's entirely possible to move around. Just make sure that you stay, at least that you're not out for more than 10 months in 5 years if you want to pursue the permanent residence, technically the long-term residence in Spain. We're going to be starting in 1 minute. People are joining now. San Francisco, Vicky, thank you very much for joining and for waking up so early. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it that you are here with us today. And we're going to start in 50 seconds. I was saying that at the end of the presentation, there is a Q&A session. So you can ask your questions anytime during the presentation on the chat box. And then at the end, I'll do my best to answer each of the questions that you have asked. Just make sure to type the question mark at the end of the question so that the software recognizes it as such. And then I just push a button and it lists all the questions one after the other. So this is how it works. And the only thing I ask in exchange, a Google review. If you think that I'm adding value and valuable information here, and you want to make this webinar known for others, because you think it's a good resource, please go ahead and leave a Google review. You can find a button there on the top of your screen. There's a green bar with a Google review red button there that will redirect you. And that's it. Those are all the instructions. So let's start now. It's 4:01 here in Malaga, and I am Bruno, and this is the Spanish Non Lucrative Visa webinar from Spainguru. Okay, this is especially focused on American, British, and Canadian applicants, but of course, it is extremely relevant information for anyone applying from anywhere in the world. How I have structured this webinar, it is a timeline, 3 main pillars: before the application, during the application, and after the approval. Before the applications, we're going to go through the definitions. We're going to talk about the consulates, third parties who process the visas, the difference between entering Spain as a tourist, when you need a residency to stay in Spain, some tax considerations, extremely important to have that in mind, even before deciding coming to Spain. And then we're going to talk about the NLV eligibility and requirements. We're going to go through each of the requirements for your non-lucrative visa and talk in depth about the most important ones. Then we're going to move to during the application, and we're going to look at the timing, probably the most important factor when you apply for this visa. And we're going to look at the application process. And then after the approval, how you arrive to Spain, different considerations on whether you enter from Schengen area or from outside Schengen area, passport stamps, the renewal rules, and of course the proposed changes that may be approved at the end of this year about the renewal rules. Long-term residence, if you want to stay in Spain more than 5 years, and potentially becoming Spanish citizen. We're going to talk about all that. And if you plan to go back to work, transition to work permits, different pathways to do so. Something very important, the content of this webinar is for information purposes only and is not legal advice. The requirements listed here are not official. Please check your specific consulate requirements and BLS office in case your consulate works with a third party for the processing of this visa. Now, a little bit about Spainguru. Our objective is facilitating the relocation process for English-speaking foreigners to Spain since 2014. So it's our 10th year anniversary for Spainguru. And my name is Bruno Bianchi Sarcone. I run Spainguru.es. I'm from Argentina. I got the Spanish citizenship, and I'm married to an American lady from Ohio, who was the one to start this platform back in the day. But now I'm running it alone. And of course, Americans are, let's say, the biggest group, but not the only one. A lot of British, almost 50-50, and Canadians, Australians, etc., etc. Now, what do you find on Spainguru.es? You have a lot of services there. If you plan to go with legal help, you can find immigration experts that were personally vetted by me, and that can help you with the non-lucrative visa application and any other immigration procedure. Tax advisors, as I said, extremely important that you know exactly what to expect if you plan to move to Spain or anywhere else, in fact. Non-lucrative visa health insurances, making sure that it is compliant health insurance what you get, and medical certificates. You can find all that on Spainguru.es. Sworn translators, you will for sure need those. Apostle services, these are private apostle services. Of course, you can go through the official government offices, but if you want private apostle services, you can find them on Spainguru.es that offer expedite services. In the case of USA, they just started doing that. Bank accounts, money transfer, all kinds of extra resources or peripheral services thought for the people who are planning to move to Spain. Even property rentals, you can do property rentals online, even get mortgages if you plan to buy property in Spain, and so much more. All that you can find on Spainguru.es, and more than 1,500 blog posts. Out of them, 700 about the non-lucrative visa. There's a YouTube channel with more than 300 videos about the non-lucrative visa, and so much more. Now, enough about Spainguru.es. Let's talk about before the application. What is the Spanish non-lucrative visa? Well, it's a visa thought for non-EU citizens who can financially support themselves and who don't need to work in Spain. This visa is defined by the law, who is on top of the by law, the regulation. Okay, and I highly recommend you to read the law articles and the regulation articles, because you will understand why there's so many variations among the different consulates in the interpretation of the law, because the non-lucrative visa, it is a quite open visa, unfortunately, and that gave space for very different interpretations, even in the same country among the different consulates. Now, something important is your assigned consulate for the non-lucrative visa application will depend on your state or area of residency. In other words, you cannot choose where you apply for the non-lucrative visa. You need to be a legal resident within the area that is served by that specific Spanish consulate. If you want to find which consulate is yours, you can go on spainguru.es/Spain non-lucrative visa, and there are their maps and dedicated pages for each of the different consulates in those three countries. And each of those dedicated pages also have links to the official requirements for those consulates and content related to that specific consulate. For instance, first-hand experiences of people who are applying and got approved or denied or whatever. Okay, you will find all the specific consulate content in those pages. Now, let's talk about BLS International. Many consulates, for instance, the three consulates in the United Kingdom and some consulates in the USA, work with a visa processor or a third party. It is an outsourced service. BLS International is an Indian company. It's a huge company present in 64 countries, listed in the Indian Stock Exchange, that processes many visas for many countries. Generally, they process the tourist visas, like all the consulates in the States use BLS for the Schengen area visa, for the Schengen visa, but not all of them use BLS International for the non-lucrative visa. For example, New York and Los Angeles don't use BLS for the non-lucrative visa, but Miami does. Okay, so when I mention a specific consulate name, if that consulate works with an outsourced service such as BLS International, really you're going to be dealing with the outsourced service. So you will have to visit probably the office of BLS International in the city where you're applying from, and not the consulate. Let's talk about the visa requirements for Spain. So first of all, the tourist visa eligibility. British, US, and Canadian citizens, they can stay in Spain and other Schengen countries for up to 90 days within a rolling 180-day period for leisure, business, or family visits without needing a tourist visa. Some nationalities require the called Schengen visa to enter as tourists, such is the case of Philippines. Okay. Now, if you want to stay in Spain for more than 90 days at a given moment in that 180-day period, you will need to obtain a visa that lets you enter Spain using the visa linked to a residency permit. Okay. Something very important is the difference between the visa and the residency. What is the difference? The visa is what you get on your passport. Okay, the piece of paper on your passport that opens a 90-day window to enter Spain, And then once you are in Spain, you need to obtain the residency linked to that visa. So you have officially 30 days to obtain the TIE card, which is the plastic residency card. That actually is your residence, your non-lucrative residence, valid for the first year, that then you will need to renew. Okay? The non-lucrative visa is technically a temporary visa because with the renewals, it's less than 5 years. Okay? Or a temporary residence. It is not a long-term, also called permanent residence. Okay? Now, very important, if you're a citizen of a European Union country or associate country like Switzerland, Norway, etc., or you are married to an EU passport holder, okay, or associate country, you are exempt of pursuing this visa, okay? This visa basically is not for you. You will need a EU family card if you're married to an EU passport holder, or if you are an EU passport holder, you don't need a visa. It is very easy to stay in Spain. It is another procedure. It grants you work permits rights. The residence permit will be valid for 5 years. So it is completely different than the non-lucrative visa. So as I said, if you are EU passport holder or married to one, obviously this visa is not for you, and neither is this webinar. Of course, you're welcome to stay until the end. Now, if you're a non-EU passport holder, this is one option, the non-lucrative visa, logically. Let's talk about taxes. Tax residence in Spain, probably the most important concept about taxes, okay? You become a tax resident in Spain and must pay tax on your global income if any of the following conditions apply. The most important and the one you need to keep in mind, if you spend over 183 days in Spain within a year, and the days don't need to be consecutive, you will be deemed to be a tax resident in Spain, okay? And 183 days in a calendar year, from January 1st to December 31st, okay? Sorry. Then there are two other conditions. Your main economic activity or primary income source is Spain, regardless of the time that you spend in the country. People, for example, who are owners of apartments and make a lot of rental income in Spain, even if they spend less than 183 days in Spain, could be considered tax residents. Or if your spouse or minor children who are permanent residents in Spain live here and you don't, maybe you are considered a tax resident also. Those two other conditions. Now, we're going to go back to taxes later on. Let's go through the non-lucrative visa documentation. And this is a summary. Of course, you need to check your official requirements. All the documentation is listed in your consulate page or BLS office website. First of all, they will ask you for an address in Spain. Depending on how strict the consulate is, they may ask you only which province you are intending to move to. And some consulates, they're even requiring rental contract, even if you haven't been in Spain, okay, or even property deeds if you're owner of a property in Spain, okay. Now, they will also ask you to prove the address in your country of residence. So you have to prove that you are a legal resident within the served area of that consulate, okay. For example, showing your driving license in the USA. You will have to prove sufficient financial means to support yourself and dependents, if applicable, without working or active income. Have comprehensive health insurance from a company authorized to operate in Spain. Or if you are a UK retiree, you can use the S1 form to access Spanish public healthcare system, and that could be also used instead of a private health insurance for the non-lucrative visa application and renewal. You will have to show a clean criminal background check. We're going to go through all this in detail, okay? A medical certificate, very different from the health insurance. It's basically a paper signed by a doctor saying that you're free of diseases that could have serious public health repercussions. If you're bringing spouses or children, you will have to also show a new marriage certificate or a new updated original copy of your marriage certificate, and the same for birth certificates, also untranslated and apostilled. And potentially you will have to prove that you will not engage in any work or professional activities in Spain. And that also changes a lot among the different consulates. Sometimes they will ask you for a letter of intent. You can find a template of letter of intent on spainguru.es. Just search Spainguru letter of intent template. And of course, you can always send me an email to hello@spainguru.es and ask me anything. Okay, I will be so happy to point you in the right directions. And of course, you will have to show a photo sometimes, fees, payment. You always have to pay those, etc. And maybe some extra costs, especially if you're applying through a BLS office. They have extra costs for several different things. All that on spainguru.es. Now let's go deeper into the financial requirements in 2024. You will have to show proof of sufficient funds. How much money you need to show, including savings and regular income? The answer is the main applicant has to show 400% of the IPREM 2024, which is an index, okay, that is published every year, but not every year changes. Actually, this year IPREM is the same as 2023. We're going to see the progression later on. The main applicant, 4 times the monthly IPREM 2024, and each dependent 100% of the IPREM 2024. Translated in money is 28,800 euros for the main applicant and 7,200 euros for each dependent. For example, a couple would be 28,800 euros plus 7,200 euros, total 36,000 euros. This is the bare minimum, okay? It's not bad to show more, okay? Actually, some lawyers prefer always to show more because the PREM index comes in 12 payments and 14 payments, and sometimes they prefer to show 14 payments instead of 12 payments. Anyways, this is the official. These are the official numbers for most consulates. The proof of funding can be savings and or passive income. Okay, pension withdrawals, rental income, dividends, all this kind of passive income. You will need to show bank statements and documentation from your bank in the US, UK, Canada, wherever you have the funds that are readily accessible. The funds have to be readily accessible without penalties by you. And some consulates, they will also ask for tax returns, okay? Especially if you are applying with dependents, so they want to see if really, for example, adult children are depending on you financially. And not only that, some consulates they just ask it all the time, the tax returns. You will also need double the amount for the renewal as of today, okay? But this is something I just added. Maybe there is a possibility. It could happen. It is not impossible that happens. After the proposed changes for the renewal, potentially you will need to show 4 times the funding proof after this regulation proposal is approved. We'll know that probably on the 12th of November. There is the ministries, the government who will get together to approve or not this or to do changes. But as of today, you need to show twice the amount of the funding. Okay, so 36 times 2, 72,000 for a couple. Okay, but as I said, this could increase. We're going to talk about that later. And there are region variations. For example, some regions, they only demand 1 year of funding, okay? Some others demand 2. And this may change, as I said, after the proposed changes. It is hard to make it simpler and clearer because really it is quite complicated because there's so much variation in the interpretations of the law, not only when you apply, but also when you renew. Something that you need to keep in mind, as I said, the IPREM index may change. Okay, that depends if there is political agreement, but right now it is 600 euros per month. But for example, in 2025, they could approve a new IPREM, and if it goes up, imagine from 600 euros per month to 650, then the main applicant will not only have to show 28,800 euros, but 31,200 euros, and the dependence also increases. Okay, because the minimum funding for this visa is linked to this index that may change. So it is something you need to consider and to plan for. $1 million question here. Can I work remotely for non-Spanish companies? So there is a legal ambiguity here, okay? And I extract these answers from my interview to Ainhoa Manero of Sterna Abogados. This is one of my most important partners. It is an immigration office, lawyer's office in Madrid, who they did my personal nationality application for Spain. And basically, there is a Supreme Court ruling that states that it is not legal nor illegal, it is a gray area, that you work remotely from Spain under a non lucrative residence. Okay? That means that at the stage of the consulate, if you say that you're going to be working, that you have active income, you will be rejected. You cannot say that or use active income to apply for the non-lucrative visa. What I'm saying is, once you have the non-lucrative visa and you are in Spain, it is a gray area, and you can potentially work remotely for non-Spanish companies. You would pay taxes on your global income once you become a tax resident in Spain. You have your private health insurance, you don't pay social security, and a lot of people are doing this. Okay, even people on YouTube, you can see them. And I know personally a lot of people doing this, especially people who were here before the approval of a digital nomad visa in January 2023. Okay, so because this visa was not thought for the remote work cases, but now that we have the digital nomad visa, that suits better, probably. But this is the situation today. No one is having problems working remotely under a non-lucrative residence, and it is absolutely defensible from a legal standpoint. You have there the QR code. You can go to my YouTube channel, watch the full interview here if you're interested about this specific point. Something that happened this weekend, and I got a lot of criticism because of publishing it. It is crazy that Edinburgh, consulate in the United Kingdom, has this specific rule that says that for those who wish to keep their job in the UK whilst living in Spain, evidence that due to the nature of your job, you can effectively reside in Spain and at the same time carry out your job in the UK. Working remotely is contrary to the nature of this visa and does not qualify for the negative visa, digital nomad visa. And there were a couple of people who were approved at Edinburgh having specific jobs in the UK of certain nature, and they provided the work contract as part of the application. This is something very specific. It is something I would say crazy, but it's something that I want to bring to your attention. Okay, I have a specific video about that, and you can see there, this is an official requirement of Edinburgh, but just take it with a huge grain of salt. Obviously, when you apply in any other consulate, don't even consider mentioning working. Okay, so don't get confused about this. This is more as an example of how crazy the different interpretations of the rules can be among the different consulates. Okay. Now let's talk about private health insurance requirements. The insurance policy has to meet certain conditions to be NLV compliant. First of all, no co-payments. Okay, so everything has to be paid. If you visit a doctor, it's not that the health insurance pays half and the doctor and you pay the other half. Can't have any of this. Reimbursements. This doesn't work either. The word reimbursement shouldn't be anywhere in the conditions of your policy. Okay, even if the doctor is fully paid, the fact that you need to pay for the doctor and then you get reimbursed, this is forbidden, absolutely. It shouldn't have any waiting periods. You must be covered from moment zero from which you set your foot in Spain. Okay, we're going to talk about the starting date. And has to have full coverage with big nuances here. And also we're going to talk about that. Full coverage by specialty, by type of medicine of doctors, okay? And full coverage within the whole geography of Spain, okay? It is absolutely normal to pay these health insurance policies a year in advance in full, okay? Because most of these companies, if not all, will require the full payment in order to issue a certificate of coverage that has a specific wording in Spanish that is accepted by each of the consulates for the non-lucrative visa. Now let's go with the different frequently asked questions. Are my medicines covered? Under a private health insurance, you will have to pay full retail price. No medicines are subsidized with private health insurance in Spain. But the good news is that, at least compared to the US, people report that the price of medicines is much cheaper in Spain. What should be the health insurance start date? Now, here you will have to do a calculation depending on when you plan to arrive in Spain and when your appointment at the consulate will happen. Okay. But normally, the health insurance start date has to be during the same month in which you intend to be in Spain. For example, if you plan to be on January 15th, the health insurance should start on January 1st. This is the general rule. Of course, if you work with a broker or exclusive agent that is used to the specific use case of someone applying for a non-lucrative visa, they will recommend you even before you purchase the different health insurances, also having in mind the different timelines, because sometimes people apply too much in advance, okay, for their intended date of arriving in Spain, and the health insurance will not be able to issue either the the certificate of coverage enough in advance for the appointment at the consulate, etc., etc. It is something that really you need to have in mind when you hire the policy and get, let's say, advice about it. Are there health insurance for older than 75 years of age? Absolutely. At least on Spainguru.es, I work with partners who offer Adeslas up to 84 years old and DKV up to 99 years old. Of course, they are very expensive, and many pre-existing conditions may not be covered in case you have them, which is very common for people older than 75 years old. But these are NLV compliant health insurance policies. What if I have pre-existing conditions? And we'll go back to the point, the full coverage point that I said it has nuances. So the way it works is this. If the pre-existing conditions are very bad, for example, you have cancer level 4, and I hope you don't, or you didn't have, but you have it, many health insurance companies may decide not to cover you at all. Okay, this is to give you an example. But sometimes maybe you have smaller things like high blood pressure, stuff like that you need to disclose, and you're obliged to legally do it when you fill the medical questionnaire. Those will not get covered, but many health insurance companies will issue this policy that is compliant for non-lucrative visa, even if those pre-existing conditions are not covered. So, as you can see, there is a nuance here. Can I pay into the Spanish public system? Yes, you can, but only after 1 year of residence in Spain. You have to contact the Social Security in the different regions where you are. This is something that varies also from region to region. And you can pay your access into the public healthcare system, paying 60 euros if you're younger than 65, or 157 euros if you're older than 65 years of age. The thing is that you don't get full coverage in some things. For example, you will have to pay full retail price for medicines with the Convenio Especial. But you will get cover for pre-existing conditions. Okay, so most people don't stop paying their private health insurance. Maybe you want to go, maybe to pay a less comprehensive plan, but keep some sort of private health insurance combined with the access to the Spanish public system. As there are benefits in staying with the private health insurance, like direct access to specialists, less waiting time, and stuff like that. Okay, and also something to have in mind, it takes several months to have real access to the public healthcare system in Spain. Even if you apply, for example, in March, maybe until October, you don't have access. Okay, so really don't count on the Convenio Especial in order to renew your non-lucrative residence. After 1 year, you will have to renew your private health insurance. This is almost everyone will tell you this. Can I use my current health insurance from the UK and USA? Um, my recommendation is no. Um, my recommendation is don't do it, okay? Because you will need a certificate of coverage in Spanish with specific wording. It may have some sort of reimbursement or copayment for different things. So these are not policies thought for the use case of someone applying for a Spanish non-lucrative visa. So there are potential blocks on the way that could result in a denial. Okay, so long story short, for me, it would be recommending you don't do it. Okay, use the companies that we know they work well for the application of the non-lucrative visa. Can I apply for a UK S1 form if I am a UK retiree? We said yes, but bear in mind it takes time to have effective access. So some sort of private coverage when you move to Spain is desirable. Do I need a Spanish bank account to hire private health insurance? No, you shouldn't need, especially if you're working with people who are used to work with Spanish non-lucrative visa applicants. If they ask you a Spanish bank account, it is a tremendously big red flag. Can I pay on a monthly basis? Normally not. Most of the most recognized companies, they will ask you to pay 1 year in advance. But then when you renew the policy and you are resident in Spain and you have a Spanish bank account, you can switch in those companies to pay on a monthly basis. Can there be reimbursements? No. What are the best companies? And really, I should change the best companies. I just say the most important and recognizable companies, because I don't know which one is the best. I think there are more or less all of them are in the same category. Okay, DKV, Adeslas, Asisa, ASA, Sanita, Salus, AXA, Caser, Mafre. All of these are reputable companies that offer NLV compliant policies, but be careful, they offer many kinds of policies. So make sure you're working with someone who knows what you're talking about. Okay, because I've seen many cases of people who got policies because they have a friend somewhere who told them, oh, you should get Mafre Salud. And then they get directly in contact with Mafre Salud and they end up buying a policy that really is not non-lucrative visa compliant. So be careful with that. Um, Actually, I have an interview with Diana Colomer on my YouTube channel. Diana Colomer works for Hidea Innsbruck. Is a very big health insurance broker that works with mostly all companies in Spain. You can watch that. It's frequently asked questions. So if you want to know more about this subject, which is a very important one because it is a big expense and it is a big risk, and you have to have it all perfect for your appointment or for your document submission. Now, different story. Medical certificate, okay, has nothing to do with the health insurance. As you can see there on the right, it is a document that has to have a certain wording. It is a document that says that you don't have infectious diseases, which makes us laugh many times because you can enter Spain for 90 days and nobody asks you anything. You could have Ebola, okay, and nobody asks you anything. But if you have to be in Spain for 91 days, you have to bring this certificate, okay? So yeah, it makes it's illogical, but this is Spanish bureaucracy. Now, this certificate has a 3-month validity. You have to make sure that when you submit your application or go to the appointment, all the documents have to be valid within their validity window, and the medical certificate is 3 months. Okay. Recommendation: use the template provided by your consulate. Some templates are like this one. This is the best template because it comes in English and it comes in Spanish. Okay. If it also comes in Spanish, make sure that the doctor fills it up also. They have to write both the English one and the Spanish one. They have to stamp it, and then you won't need to sworn translate it. Okay, that's very important. But some of the templates going around there don't have the Spanish version. In that case, you would need to sworn translate it in any case. Okay, now here are some differences for the USA and the UK. In the USA and Canada, there's no need to apostille this medical certificate. Okay, as I said, you only need to sworn translate it if it's only in English, and make sure that the doctor is the one signing and not, for example, the person in the front desk. They have to have a stamp with the registration number of the doctor. It has to look very official and printed with the letterhead of the doctor's office. But in the UK, it's a different thing. In the UK, it must be also apostilled. Okay, the doctors in the UK can register with the Foreign Office so that their signature gets apostilled. Okay, Spainguru, yes, has a discount if you want to use an online service called ZoomDoc that is widely accepted in the three consulates in the UK. That gives you a medical certificate, fully compliant, but comes only in Spanish. So you will need to also apostille it and sworn translate it. And there is another option, and also Spainguru.es offers you this option to get in touch with a Spanish doctor. Okay. So the interesting part about getting a certificate from a Spanish doctor is that this is in Spanish. It doesn't need to be apostilled, and it doesn't have to be sworn translated. Obviously, it is already in Spanish. Okay. But some consulates, that is the case of Manchester, for example, they have required that the certificate from the Spanish doctor has to be issued in the same moment in which a person is physically present in Spain. So you have to be physically present in Spain when the Spanish doctor issues this certificate. Even if this, in the case of the Spainguru's doctor, is online, okay, you have to be present, okay? But this is for very specific consulates that have these special requirements. If you contact this doctor, the doctor will tell you, depending on the consulate where you're applying, if his certificate is being accepted or not. This is, again, a very another variation in the interpretation of the rules, because there's nowhere in the rules saying that you have to be physically present in Spain when you receive a medical certificate for the application of the visa. Frequently asked question: my doctor won't sign the medical certificate template. What can I do? Search another doctor. Okay. If you're in the USA, apparently you can go to urgency services and you bring the paper and you tell them to sign. They will charge you some dollars and you will get it. This is what people are saying. And potentially you could use the Spanish doctor from Spainguru. For example, San Francisco and Miami, I know for a fact that they're accepting this certificate. So you do it online. You don't have to be present in Spain when you do it. Okay, for those specific consulates as of today. My doctor is not FCDO registered for the UK. Is his certificate valid? No. He has to be registered at the FCDO. Some doctors choose to register. It takes only a couple of days to do so. So maybe your general practitioner that you have been going to your whole life isn't registered. Maybe chooses to register, and then you can do it with him or her. But this is necessary for the apostille in the UK. Okay, and of course, always sworn translated if it's not already in Spanish, the template. Now, let's talk about the clean criminal background check. This document is usually the one that takes the longest to obtain in any country. It must be clean during the last 5 years, squeaky clean, nothing, okay? Let's talk about the ACRO in the UK, which is the police check of the UK. It needs to be apostilled always and sworn translated always. Okay, and in that order, it is always recommended to first apostille and then sworn translate, and sworn translate everything, the document and the apostille as well. It usually has a 6-month validity. Always check the official requirements. And if we talk about the FBI background check, federal apostille and sworn translation, and I underline federal apostille, okay, no state apostille. And it has normally a 6-month validity. Always check with your consulate. Frequently asked questions: am I still eligible with records on my background check? So this will depend on the person reviewing your case. If you have usually small thing, a misdemeanor, okay, like smoking pot when you are 25 in the university, okay, 20 years ago, nothing will happen. Or even driving under the influence, these kind of things usually don't have any problem. Or in the UK, something called you have a record that you cannot see, and no live trace. Lately, they've been asking for a report to see what there is under that no live trace in the UK. So make sure to get that report also, okay, when you apply. This is something for the last month that has been happening, okay? If you have something worse, okay, a felony, stuff like that, you serve time in prison, stuff like that, usually you will get denied, okay? Even if it was 20 years ago or more, you will get denied. So for that, if you want to avoid that, there are ways to delete those records depending on the country where you are. So, but this takes a long, long time. So if you are planning to apply for a Spanish visa or any other visa in the world in general, that doesn't allow any criminal, like bad criminal records, you have to delete them before applying. That's for sure. Um, I think it's called expungement in the states. That process. Can I expedite the background check federal apostille in the U.S.? Until very recently, you couldn't. There is a way now in the U.S. I partner with Monument Visa, and they have a process to expedite the federal apostille. Also, some other people, some people in the groups, they reported getting in touch with their congressman in the county where they're from, and with different results. Some people had miraculously their federal apostille very quickly done by their congressman. Some other people reported spending more time trying to get a response from them than if they would have used another service. Sorry for that. Can I notarize the background check and use the state apostille instead? No, you shouldn't do it. Some people in the past were approved doing this, but now it's almost 100% denial if you do this. Where can I have my fingerprints taken? In the US, there are different ways to send those fingerprints to the FBI. You can do it at home with wet paint and put it inside an envelope and send it. Or there are channelers. Okay, if you search FBI channelers, there's offices in almost every city in the states. What happens if and then you go there and they scan your fingerprints? And what if my fingerprints are illegible? I have content about that. If that is your case, just send me an email to hello@spainguru.es. Um, I will write it here because I can send you tricks and companies that people used to get their fingerprints read. I wanted to quote the situation in different countries here. For example, how is long is taking the Acropolis check, and this was 14 October 2024, so 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it was taking about 20 days, 25 days to arrive. And in Canada, we had a very extreme situation because the police check from Canada wasn't taking too long, but the apostille was taking 5 months. And people were sending the papers to Madrid to their lawyer so that the lawyer could get the apostille in the consulate in Madrid, for example, or elsewhere, and then return them the document apostille in Canada. This is no longer happening, thank God. Okay, so people are in Canada are actually taking only 10 business days nowadays to get their apostilles for their police checks, which is extremely good news for our Canadian friends. Especially there was someone there from Saskatchewan. I remember. Proof of not working. Okay, this is also something quite complex to explain in one single way because it also depends a lot with every single consulate and also with the particular situation of the applicant. Normally, this visa is called the retirement visa because it is mainly thought for people who want to retire and come to live to Spain on passive income coming especially from their pension, okay, or social security. Now, normally, if you show a proof of receipt of a pension, it will be enough to prove that you're not working. If you're still working, okay, just before applying, plan to quit just before applying, or even setting the condition to get their visa granted and then quit, okay, there are ways to do so. Okay, if you're still working now and you plan to apply but resign before applying, you need to provide a P45 in the UK. If you're in the US, a resignation letter or termination letter from your employer, both translated and notarized. And if you're a freelancer in the US, notarized affidavit promising not to work. In the UK, a letter from HMRC, an accountant stating having ceased trading and deregistered for self-employment. Should I quit before I get the visa? We're going to talk about that on the next slide. Is renting out a property considered a job? Here, size matters. If you have only one or two properties and you're renting long term, it's not considered a job. It's not considered active income. But if you have several properties, or you have one property potentially, and you're renting on a more active way, for example, holidays, okay, rentals like Airbnb and stuff. Imagine that you have 5 properties and you are renting them all on a vacational basis using Airbnb, it may be considered work. So some people decide to appoint a property manager and get paid every month in order to make sure that this is not considered active income. Is investing in stocks considered active income? Normally not. Can I volunteer while on an LLV? A lot of people say that under a non-lucrative visa, you shouldn't work at all, even if you're not get paid. And this is absolutely not true. Okay, it is non-lucrative, lucrative. Okay, not work visa. And I actually recommend that you volunteer. Okay, because it will get you closer to your community. You will be more you will introduce yourself better into the society and the country where you live. Okay, it will be better for you potentially to learn the language, to help others. You will feel better. People will receive your help, which will be great. Okay, if you're volunteering, and there's absolutely no problem if you do it, as long as you don't get paid, nothing happens. Okay. And people ask me, but what if they pay the trips, okay, to me, or the lunches and stuff like that? That is gray area. I don't know. If you receive a payment, then it's another story. So be careful with that. Still working at the time of application. And here, just to show you more how this situation is, now I'm going to quote some Spainguru Facebook group members in the UK consulates. Someone said, a P45 is one way, but so is a letter from your employer stating you have resigned and will leave on a certain date. And then someone said, it looks like a bit of a potluck if they accept a letter from HR department in place of a P45 if working up to the last minute. Okay. In the US consulates, they are much more used to the situation in which people work until the very last moment. Even they continue working with the condition of stopping if their visas are granted. So normally it is listed in their requirements what you have to submit if you are in that situation. And for example, someone says for Los Angeles consulate, the Los Angeles consulate will accept an authorized letter of intent that states your plan on quitting upon obtaining the visa before leaving for Spain. One of the good things you can do is go on the Spainguru Non Lucrative Visa Facebook group and ask mentioning the consulate where you plan to apply and describe your situation and ask what others have done in order to get their visas approved. A strange case that I stumbled upon lately, it was in December 2023, a Venezuelan national who applied for non-lucrative visa at the Buenos Aires consulate got denied because he showed activity on his LinkedIn. Okay. And this was appealed, and the court said that the consulate was right. Okay, I don't think anyone has ever mentioned this, but yeah, this is how strict consulates can be when we come to talking about working. Okay, so you have to be very, very careful how you're gonna submit your documents and how you're gonna frame your application. Okay. Now let's talk about marriage certificates, birth certificates, and the case of non-married couples. Can they apply together? Married couples need a valid and updated certificate, marriage certificate, okay, that has usually a 6 months validity. And be careful, because before I said that the police check is usually the longest one to obtain, but in some cases, people have married, especially people who have married in islands like Cyprus or Trinidad and Tobago or places like those, they need to obtain a new marriage certificate, and they need to apostille it by the authorities of that place. So sometimes it's almost impossible to get it. Even people from South Africa reported that it was impossible to do. And one possible solution, unfortunately, is to apply separately as two main applicants. And of course, it will have bigger funding requirements than if you apply with a dependent. Okay, the same case for children. Okay, they will need new birth certificates with apostille and sworn translation, and be careful if they were born in different places, because you'll need to go through the same thing. Non-married couples can apply as couples, but they need to prove the relationship, and the best way to do it is having some sort of document saying that you're a legal partners. You're not married, but you have a legal partnership. But if you don't, it is not the end of the world, but you enter into riskier area because it will depend on the official reviewing your case. If you have children together, you have a very strong case. If you have joint accounts, a bit less. If you just show joint property deeds or photos from your holidays, uh, maybe you are not considered a couple. Okay, so yes, this is how it works. Apostilled always in the country that issues those documents and sworn translated. And if the documents come in, let's say, not so common languages, for example, Turkish, or yeah, different languages that are not the usual, like Spanish, sorry, like English or French, etc. Maybe sometimes those countries they issue the documents in English, the official documents, which will make it easier for the sworn translation and cheaper. Okay. Now, what about adult children and ascendants? Yes, there's no limit. An adult children is someone considered over 18 years old without age limit. That is your child and depends on you financially and is not part of the same family unit. You will need to prove that the child is not married or anyone, and it's like basically it's really a dependent. Okay, and the same happens with ascendants. And here I go much more in depth about this, but it will take probably too long. If you want to know more about this, just send me an email to hello@spainguru.es. Now, what are sworn translators? We have mentioned them many times, but I haven't explained what they exactly are. Sworn translators are accredited by the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. No one else can accredit a sworn translator in Spain. They pass a very difficult exam to become certified. Each sworn translator has a unique registration number that you can check online, but it is not easy to do it, like anything in Spanish bureaucracy. But we have Spainguru.es, where I recommend you very good professionals and not expensive that you can use for your non-lucrative visa sworn translations. Their translations are accepted by all Spanish institutions, including consulates. The translations are done remotely and signed with a legally valid e-signature. So a lot of people ask, do you know a sworn translator that lives in my town, in the UK, for example, in Liverpool? Well, you don't. You don't need a sworn translator that lives next door. You can send everything scanned, and then you received the scanned document with the e-signature, and that's enough to provide it to the consulate or BLS office, if applicable. So no physical mail is needed. Now, frequently asked question: can I use an e-translator from the American Translators Association? The answer is no. It has to be a sworn translator appointed by the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs with a unique registration number. Okay, and I mentioned this because in Miami, in the official requirements, they mention the American Translator Association wrongly. Okay, it has nothing to do. The only thing that it has in common is that they both translate stuff, but a sworn translator in Spain is almost like an official, okay, like an officer, okay, almost. Can a sworn translator work with several language pairs? The answer is no. They can only translate one language pair, Spanish and English, for example. So if you need to translate different languages, you will need to get in touch with different sworn translators or work with companies that aggregate sworn translators. How much do sworn translation costs? Usually for the documents needed for the Spanish non-lucrative visa, they're about 35 to 40 euros per page, around that. Okay, it depends on your urgency, it depends on the complexity of the document, etc. What comes first? Apostille, then sworn translation. Long story short, first you should apostille and then sworn translate everything. Okay. People say, oh, but the apostille also comes in Spanish. But the text that comes in the apostille is not everything that appears in the original document. And if you find a very bad officer who is reviewing your case, they can make problems about it. So I wouldn't do it, just to avoid headaches, unnecessary headaches. Now, if you want to know more answers for the whole non-lucrative visa process, You can watch my interviews to Ainhoa Manero and Sofia Mejail of CABR Relocation Solutions and Stern Abogados. You can find those lengthy but very interesting, I have to say, interviews, because these guys are professional. They are professional. They are immigration lawyers who tell you exactly how things work. Little pause here just to remind you that at the end of this presentation, there is a Q&A session where I'm going to go through all the questions you asked. Okay, make sure to add a question mark in every question that you ask in the thing, in the in the chat box. And if you like the webinar so far, if you think that I'm adding value and in showing good information, don't forget to leave a good Google review. You can find the button there on the top for leaving a Google review. Now let's continue and let's go during the application. Now you have the introduction. Now let's talk about the application process, okay? The real thing. All family members must apply, okay? Everyone has to fill their own forms. Everybody has to pay their own taxes, okay? Of course, it's one single file if it's a family, but everyone has to have their documents separately. In-person application or pickup, depending on the consulate. Some consulates will only work by mail. This is the case of San Francisco, although lately, in the last month, they have started receiving applications in person in the consulate, something very new. Some consulates use a combination or give you the option to go in person, such is the case of Houston. The non-lucrative visa will grant you a 90-day window to arrive to Spain. Okay, once you obtain it, you will have an intended date to start the visa, and from that date, 90 days window to enter Spain and activating the visa. We'll go through that in detail. Common mistakes to avoid: not checking the specific consular requirements. For example, listening to a non-official source like Spainguru. I can't have all the official requirements of all the consulates all the time. It's impossible. You need to go to the official requirements and BLS office if applicable. Using wrong or expired documents. For example, it is possible to apostille a document, for example, a background check, who is older than 6 months. Okay, so if you apostille it, but it is already older than 6 months, and the apostille is still valid, yes, it doesn't make the document underneath valid, if it makes sense, okay? That can lead to a denial or a further documentation request. For example, now using the wrong chronology, starting with the easier documents and leaving the most difficult at the end. This was the case, as I said, someone who started with the acro, but they forgot that he got married in Trinidad and Tobago, and actually it took him longer to get the marriage certificate and the apostille than the actual police check in the UK. Wrong health insurance. As I said, they have to be NLV compliant. These are huge companies. They have so many different kinds of policies, and it's important that you use a non-lucrative visa compliant policy that doesn't have reimbursements, doesn't have co-payments, full cover. It has to have full coverage, etc., etc. Say that you plan to work, yes, or as we said, have an active LinkedIn page, for example, okay, at the time of application. Yes, or not proving enough that you will not work. This was the case of someone who is 35, who recently applied in New York City. I have an interview on my YouTube channel, and she said, I promised not to work, but she forgot to add that promise for her husband, and they denied it, and they had to reapply. So the younger you are, the more scrutiny you will face in reference to work possibilities by the consulates. Then, once you are in Spain, working remotely, as I said, it is a gray area, and this is the a legal standpoint, a legal truth. Now, let's talk about the timing. How much in advance should I start preparing before moving to Spain? And this considers also decision-making phase. Sorry. In the US and Canada, it usually takes longer, usually 6 months. And in the UK, it takes shorter, okay? 4 to 5 months in advance from the intended date that you plan to arrive in Spain. Most consulates will retain passport during the processing of the visa, something you have to keep in mind. US applicants can get a second passport quite easily. I have content about that. And UK applicants may be allowed by BLS office to keep theirs under certain conditions, but it is very, very hard to obtain a second passport because applying for a visa is not one of the conditions in the UK to get a second passport. Also, I have content about that. You will need sometimes to leave some prepaid envelopes, okay, and you will receive your passports with the visa in your house. Or sometimes the consulate will require in-person visits, and sometimes by all the family, every applicant, okay, which is not convenient if you have to drive many hours, for example, from Atlanta, Georgia to Miami, or take an airplane. How long does the process take? Normally, document preparation, 2 to 3 months. As I said, depending, you had to review your case. If you were married somewhere difficult, it will take long, etc., etc. You have to be careful with that. Attending the appointment happens normally during the third month. You wait for the approval. 2 months approximately is average among all the consulates. Sometimes 13 days, sometimes more than 3 months. In fact, the official maximum should be 3 months, but it is not uncommon to see that it takes longer sometimes. Sometimes they will require extra documentations or clarifications. Usually they found that some document is expired or something that they didn't understand or whatever. They will give you only 10 days period to provide the new documents. You can choose a visa start date in a 90-day window from the application date. Okay. So I'm not very good at math, but if you, for example, you submit your documents on January 1st, you could select your intent date to enter Spain 3 months after. Okay, so 1st of February, febrero, marzo, abril, first like 30 of March could be the top, and then that would start a 90-day window to enter Spain. Okay, officially, once you enter Spain, you will have 30 days to obtain the TA card, which will be valid for 1 year before you have to renew it. The TA card is the plastic card that says that you are a legal resident in Spain under the non-lucrative residency. Timing. Someone posted, you can ask for the visa to be valid for up to 3 months in advance. However, the difficulty I found was finding a health insurance company who will work that far out, as most only do too. And this is, as I mentioned before, this is something to have in mind. That's why you need to work with seasoned and experienced brokers who can tell you which companies, which policies adapt to your timings as well, okay? That are, of course, non-lucrative visa compliant. You can find them on spainguru.es, but be careful with that. Now, this is a more visual way to see the process. First, of course, this is general. It will depend on the consulate and your official requirements. But first, you need to find what is your assigned Spanish consulate. Then make sure to read the official requirements of your specific consulate in English, in Spanish, and the BLS office if they work with outsourcing service. Then you will start collecting your documents, starting by the most difficult ones, potentially the police checks, marriage certificate or birth certificate if you're coming with dependents and you got married in difficult jurisdictions. Then you will get your medical certificate that has a 3 months validity. You will apostille and sworn translate all the official documents, and in the UK also the medical certificate. You will sort out the private health insurance. Unless you're a UK pensionist, you could access the public healthcare system using the S1 form. You will book the appointment with your consulate, okay, or BLS office. And be careful with this because in Canada, in Toronto, the appointments, people are recommending booking the appointments before gathering all the documentation because it's so difficult to get an appointment. And this could potentially be the case in Los Angeles and in Chicago. A lot of people see their documents expire because they can't get appointments. So make sure to be on Spainguru's Non-Lucrative Visa Facebook group and ask about the timings constantly. It doesn't matter. I will approve all the posts because it's important to understand how the appointments are working. Then you will attend the consular or BLS appointment if they have one. And then you will submit your papers, wait for your notification. As we said, maximum 12 weeks official time. And then you will collect your visa, or they will send you your visa home. You will travel to Spain um, within this 90 days validity period. Then once you arrive to Spain, it is not an official requirement, but I asked the community and they told me you should put it. Obtain the padrón. The empadronamiento or certificado de empadronamiento is the registration at the city hall where you're living, okay? Because a lot of police stations will require you to submit also the empadronamiento when you apply for the TIE, the plastic card that shows that you are under the residency. Let's go back to taxes. Something to have in mind. A lot of people, they have to sell their homes or sell assets or pension funds, etc. And you have to be careful because if you are a tax resident in Spain, you will have to pay taxes on your global income, right? So if you sell your house and you have capital gains, you probably have to pay capital gains tax if you do it wrongly. So be careful with the timing. Let's talk about that. Selling your main property and becoming a tax resident in Spain within the same calendar year could result in CGT liabilities on the gains not reinvested in Spain. Common strategy: sell in December and move to Spain in January, let's say, just to understand how it works. In order to fall into separate tax years, avoiding Spanish CGT on your property sale. How to plan your move? I'll give you an example. If planning to move in August, the month number 8, and stay less than 183 days for that year, you won't become a Spanish tax resident immediately, avoiding CGT for that year. Okay? Plan your non-lucrative visa application considering previous stays during the same year of your intended arrival in Spain. Why I added this text? Because some people thought that coming in Spain at the beginning of a year as a tourist didn't count for tax residency. And then they stayed 180 days with their non-lucrative visas, but they had stayed as tourists for 20 days, so total 200 days, they became tax residents in Spain. Okay, so it doesn't matter your immigration status. What it matters if you're physically in Spain, even for one single minute in Spain, that day you are in Spain. CGT mitigation. Reinvesting the sales proceeds into new property in Spain can potentially mitigate CGT liabilities. And for main residencies, individuals over 65 may have specific allowances to reduce the CGT exposure. You can see there a croquis or a drawing. Tax years, they go from January 1st to December 31st. So you have to fall into separate tax years if you plan to sell your home. That's the best you can do to avoid CGT. But here are other examples, okay? For example, in year 1, you put on sale your house, you sell it, and then year 2, you obtain your visa, you approved, you fly to Spain. You are not that will not become a tax event for the Spanish tax authorities. Or if you plan to sell during the same year, make sure to be less than 193 days that specific year. One of the proposed changes now is to require at least 183 days to stay in Spain to renew the non-lucrative visa. But there is a court ruling saying that this change, this should not be written in the bylaw. It should be written in the law. The law doesn't have it, so we're still under the same ambiguity. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. And if you want to know more about taxes, I have so many videos and so many blog posts on Spainguru.es. And of course, if you want to know more, I can send you links to that. Just send me an email. And now we're going to talk about after approval. How to arrive to Spain, for example. Living in Spain on a non-lucrative visa. There's 2 ways you can arrive to Spain. From outside Schengen or from within Schengen. Schengen is a group of 27 countries, which is internally borderless. So if you cross, for example, driving your car from France to Spain, you will not get a stamp in your passport. Okay? You will not see authorities normally. For people especially who drive from the UK to Spain, this will be the case. Or if you fly from the US or Canada to Paris, you will get a stamp in Paris, but then you fly to Barcelona, let's say, and then in Barcelona, nobody is there to stamp your passport. How do Spanish authorities know when you exactly enter Spain? Because it's not the Schengen area it is Spain that you need to prove that you're in. You will need a declaración de entrada, which is a one-page document that you can obtain in a foreigner's office or normally a national police station. Each airport has it. When you enter Spain from Portugal or from France, you will have national police stations there. But basically, you have 72 hours to go to the police station, for example, and show your boarding passes, okay, or anything, or just say like I just entered, and the police station will issue that document, and that's the best document you can have if you entered via another Schengen country. Okay, so don't forget that. This is very important. And something important, you should enter Spain within the 90 days of the visa validity window if you want to avoid problems or things you didn't plan for. Okay, it's a very different things that can happen if you enter, for example, Spain as a tourist before the 90 days visa validity period. People then went to the police station to get their TIE cards, and the police said, no, you have to get out of Schengen and come back and get a stamp during the visa validity period, which is extremely uncomfortable to do so. Sometimes they were accepted. Oh, you enter as a tourist 30 days before your visa start date. Well, I will set your residency start date to the day you enter Spain. And now they have to renew their visas earlier. Okay, so let's say they lost a month. Okay, some people said that they just showed their boarding passes to the police, and that was enough. That was good. The best is to show a declaración de entrada. You will find all kinds of stories about how the police officers reacted to the different variations, but the best you can do is enter during the visa validity window of 90 days if you want to avoid problems. Get now some recommendations, is not a requirement. Get a Spanish SIM card when you arrive to Spain. You will receive SMS via your Spanish phone number from the procedures that you have to go through. It is also very recommended that you open a non-resident bank account once you arrive to Spain. You will not have your TIE card yet, and it can take months until you have it because there are no appointments. So it's better that you have a Spanish non-resident bank account so you can pay your utilities and everything. So normally the biggest banks, they will open you a non-resident bank account just showing your passport, and that will be enough. And a NIE number. But the NIE number, it is a different thing than the TIE. The NIE number is a number that you are assigned as a foreigner by Spanish authorities forever. The number will never change until you become Spanish, okay? And that number will be on your visa, on your Spanish non lucrative visa, on your passport. So you show your passport and it will open you a non-resident bank account that normally will have fees. Once you become a resident, once you have your TIE card, you should go to the bank and say, I'm a resident now. Change the status of my account to resident bank account, and then you will normally have less fees. And now that the interests are high, maybe you get some interest on your cash. It is also recommended, we're going to talk about this, to obtain a padrón as soon as possible when you arrive to the place where you intend to live. That usually has a 3-month validity period. And we're going to talk about that. And the TIE, you have officially 30 days time limit to obtain it, but almost no one can do it. Frequently asked question, is the padrón or certificado de empadronamiento strictly necessary to obtain the TIE? We're going to talk about that. There are no appointments to obtain the TIE. What should I do? Now, I basically quoted a lawyer who is processing non-lucrative visas and all kinds of visas every day about the TIE appointment. It is officially required within a month, but no one requires it, okay? Appointments, depending on the city, can take up to 6 months without any issue, so don't get depressed or angry or crazy if you don't get your TIE card in 30 days. The sooner the better, but there is no immediate rush. Now, the empadronamiento. Sorry, coming back. But of course, not having your TIE card can be a problem. If you didn't open a bank account, okay, thinking that you were going to have your TIE card, it can take months, so be careful. Yes, that's why my previous recommendations. Now, padrón for the non-lucrative visa or certificado de empadronamiento. Officially, it is not needed for obtaining the TIE, okay, or the plastic card. Big police stations usually know this, okay? And it changes even within the same city. For example, in Malaga, where I live, there is a big police station, and then there are smaller police stations. In all of them, you can have your TIE, but the smaller police stations, maybe they require the empadronamiento, but in the big police station, they are not requiring it, the empadronamiento for the TIE, because they know it's taking too long. And if you show your rental contract here in Malaga, it will be fine to obtain your TIE, a rental contract or a property deed, or even Airbnb receipts. So this lawyer is also showing in Valencia Airbnb receipts, for example, because what you need to show officially is proof of address. The thing is, the empadronamiento is the best proof of address you can show, but not the only one. Okay, and usually big police stations know this. But what happens is you don't get an appointment in big police stations because they are too crowded. So you end up getting an appointment in a smaller police station. So the best you can do is to find out if they will need an empadronamiento for your application of the TIE before going. Okay. Renewal process. How and when to renew your non-lucrative visa. Okay, and again, here we enter muddy waters because of the proposed changes to change the bylaw or reglamento of the law, referring to the renewal rules or requirements to renew this kind of visa. So the first year you enter Spain within the visa validity period. The first year you get this non-lucrative residence. Excuse me. But then you will have to renew in any case. Until now, you have renewals of periods of 2 years. So the first renewal is for year 2 and 3, and then the second renewal is for years 4 and 5, and there is a extra renewal you can have for year 5 and 6. 6 and 7. That is extraordinary, and actually Galicia doesn't permit it, as you see, many variations. But now the proposed changes are not to have 2 and 2 years renewal, but have only one period of 4 years. Okay. The renewal always happens within 60 years before the expiration of those terms, up to 90 days after the expiration. Now, about the financial requirements for renewal. Until now, is twice the savings in most places. Okay. In places like Madrid, they only require 1 year. Okay. For example, Alicante was also requiring 1 year, but lately they started requiring 2. You have to be careful where you are renewing. But now that they probably change the renewal period to 4 times, also there will be variations according to the place where you are renewing. What we all hope is that they don't ask for 4 years funding proof, but we have to wait and see. We don't know it. Okay. You will have to show passive income, for example, pension and or savings. Okay. And in case you have lump sum, the funds have to be available in the account when you're renewing. And it depends on the province where you're renewing. If they want a Spanish bank account with some funds, with movements, or you can prove your account that the money is in the account in the UK, for example. It is very, very local what they require. As we said, the second renewal is for year 4 and 5. It will be the same as year 2 and 3. Unless you move from province to province, as I said, it may change the requirements. And then after year 5, after you have been resident in Spain for 5 years, you could pursue the long-term residence, also known as permanent residence, provided that you haven't been out of Spain more than 10 months in the last 5 years. And they're very strict about that. You have to be careful. But if you didn't comply with this requirement, you could renew for 1 extraordinary time more, as I said, except Galicia, in order to comply with this requirement and still get your long-term residence after 7 years. Renewal process. Proposed changes end of 2024. Extended renewal period. The renewals period is proposed to extend to 4 years instead of the current 2-year periods. While this provides longer-term stability, applicants will need to meet additional criteria, probably. Okay, someone still just asked about that. So as I said, this is changing as we speak, and probably will know on the 12th of November exactly what the periods for renewals will be. If they stay to be 2 renewals of 2 years with an extraordinary period of 2 more years if you need it, or one single period of 4 years. And what will happen if you need an extraordinary renewal? What will be the criteria? Then there will be a 183-day stay requirement. Today is 180 days, 6 months, okay? And visa holders may soon be required to spend at least 183 days per year in Spain to qualify for renewal. This aligns with Spanish tax residency rules, meaning applicants will likely become tax residents. But listen, there's legal ambiguity. The 183-day rule is currently only included in a bylaw, okay? Not the main law. A Supreme Court ruling indicates that it must be in the main law to be fully enforceable. Presently, many non-lucrative visa holders are still renewing without meeting the 180 days requirement. Okay, this is happening today, and it will probably still continue to happen because they need to change the law, because the 183-day rule of minimum stay goes against one basic right we have, which is the freedom of movement. Okay, so this was challenged by the court, by the Supreme Court in Spain, and now we're in a little bit in a ambiguity about this. Renewal process case study. Now, imagine nothing changes and the renewal stays at 2 years funding requirements for a couple. For example, we're going to have a case study for a couple. So as we said, main applicant is 28,800 euros plus 7,200 euros of the spouse. Total for a couple is 36,000 euros for 1 year. But if you renew for 2 years, in many provinces, they will require you 72,000 euros, which is double that amount. This case study, main applicant, for example, one person in that couple has a pension that pays 15,000 euros annually. So in 2 years, this person will receive 30,000 euros. So they need to complete with 42,000 euros more to reach 72,000 euros. Example 1, they have a property rental income that pays them 21,000 euros per year, which is 42,000 euros in 2 years. Together with the 30,000 euros of a pension, they have those 72,000 euros funding. Or, for example, they have some in the bank for 42,000 euros, or a combination. Imagine, okay, maybe you receive more rental income or more pension, then you will need less lump sum, especially for American applicants who are renewing. They can use also credit from their credit cards in their bank, but they need to provide a certificate from their bank stating that the money is readily available immediately without penalties or whatsoever. And this is being accepted as proof of funding as well, just to give you an example. Documentation requirements: ongoing private medical insurance coverage or public healthcare system coverage if you change using the Convenio Especial, as we mentioned, or you're a UK pensionist using the S1 from the beginning. Updated passport copies for both individuals. This is how they can see that you went out or not for the minimum stay. People ask me, what if I go to France or Germany or I don't get out from the Schengen area? Well, there's no borders generally, okay, 99% of cases. So there's no way, let's say, to enforce that you have been or not in Spain if you didn't get out of the Schengen area and your passport wasn't checked. Local town hall registration. It is needed as certificado de empadronamiento when you renew your visa. Not when you obtain the NLV. As I said before, it is not an official requirement. The best is if you have it, but it's not an official requirement. But when you renew, it is an official requirement to have the certificado de empadronamiento. Renewal process, case study, changes 2024. Imagine the worst case scenario, 4-year proof of funds requirements. In the worst case scenario, the new rule suggests that applicants may need to show proof of funds for the entire 4-year renewal period up front. This could significantly increase the financial burden on applicants, okay? Please take this with a grain of salt. We don't know anything right now. This is something that is being discussed. We will know more as the weeks pass, okay? But I need to bring it to your attention. I wouldn't be serious enough if I didn't mention you this at the moment. Okay. Regional variability. Different regions in Spain may apply different criteria. Some may only require proof of funds for 1 year, while others could demand proof for 4 years. This inconsistency emphasizes the importance of understanding regional requirements and consulting experts. Expected timelines for the proposed changes. The Spanish government expects these changes to be effective by late 2024, though delays into early 2025 are possible once published in the Boletín Oficial del Estado, or BOE, the official gazette. The new rules could become enforceable immediately or within a few weeks. Summary of changes. So, renewal period potentially extended to 4 years. Minimum stay requirement 183 days pending legal clarification. As we mentioned, there is a Supreme Court decision there that challenges this anyway. Proof of funds, potential requirements for the full 4 years period in certain provinces. Implementation date likely late 2024, subject to official publication. And please follow Spainguru.es, follow my YouTube channel, and stay informed because these changes can happen as soon as next week. Time you need to spend in Spain to maintain your residence, obtain long-term residence, or even Spanish citizenship. We have talked about the non-lucrative visa renewal. Now there are renewals being in Spain less than 6 months, okay, because of the Supreme Court decision. So people are renewing their non-lucrative visas now, even staying less than 6 months. And the proposed changes, you will need to be in Spain 183 days per calendar year, as we said, which will make you a tax resident in Spain, but the legal ambiguity continues. Sorry, I'm so redundant. It's just I want to make you clear. I don't know how to express exactly the stage in which we are. Yes, I hope I made it clear. Now, about the long-term residence, this hasn't changed or will not change. You cannot be outside of Spain more than 10 months in 5 years to obtain it. If not, you could apply for another 2 years non-lucrative visa renewal that potentially could change to a new 4-year NLV renewal. And normally this renewal would be extraordinary. We have to see if it's considered extraordinary or not. And be careful if you're moving to Galicia because this is not allowed now. In Galicia only. Nationality. Okay, how long can I be out of Spain before applying for Spanish nationality? So if you're a holder of a temporary residence before applying for nationality, you cannot be outside of Spain more than 6 months a year. But especially for Ibero-Americans or Filipinos or people with agreements that can obtain the Spanish nationality after only 2 years of legal residence in Spain, you cannot be more outside of Spain more than 3 months a year. And this is criteria set by courts. So be careful with that. If you're a holder of long-term residence before you apply for the Spanish citizenship, you shouldn't be outside of of the European Union more than 1 year consecutively, or no more than 30 months in 5 years. Frequently asked question, there's a Supreme Court ruling 6 months minimum stay no longer required. Effectively, yes, that is correct. And they have deleted the requirement of having to stay at least 6 months in Spain to renew the non-lucrative visa or any temporary visa or residence, okay? But now the proposed change is to rewrite that point E that used to say 6 months and put literally 183 days, okay? But the Supreme Court ruling still challenges this because this is the bylaw and it is not the law. It should be in the law, okay? Because it breaks our basic right of freedom of movement. This is the situation today expressed by the experts. Transition to work after 1 year, work permit, okay? And there are several paths to be able to work in Spain. I'm gonna only mention 3 of them, probably the most important ones. First one, if you start your own business, this is called work permit cuenta propia, okay? Permiso de trabajo por cuenta propia. And you must present a business project that, depending on the type of business project, it could be considered strategic or common business, like opening a cafeteria, for example, and it will be treated differently. You will have to provide a business plan, etc., and you may be approved or not, okay? But you have the right to potentially change to a work permit after 1 year under the non-lucrative residence. Now there is also working as an employee. Imagine you receive an offer from a company. Okay, this is called cuenta ajena. Okay, and after 1 year, you can change to this situation. If you receive a job offer and a company is ready to sponsor you for doing this change, a lot of people say that this is very difficult. I know a lot of people who have done it. My wife did it, for example. She started her own business and from being a student, but it's the same process. Exactly the same paperwork. You need to show that your business project is viable. Okay, and she was approved. To give you a very clear example, so it is absolutely possible. Okay, but it is best to do it with legal advice. You can transition to a digital nomad visa. Also, if you plan to work remotely for non-Spanish companies, you could change to a Spanish non-lucrative visa. People have done this, which is extremely controversial because for the digital nomad visa, you need to prove that you have been working remotely for the previous 3 months before application, which is, of course, against the spirit of the Spanish non-lucrative visa. But again, proving that this is a gray area and they are allowing it. Actually, they are allowing people who are working remotely to transition to a non-lucrative visa. Pathway to Spanish citizenship after living in Spain on a non-lucrative visa. Usually, if you're American, you're from the UK, Canada, Australia, most countries, it will take you 10 years of legal residence to become a Spanish national. Well, to apply for Spanish citizenship and then wait until you get approved. There is something called the fast track nationality that applies for Ibero-American nationals and other countries with cultural ties with Spain. For example, Philippines, Andorra, Portugal. Um, um, Equatorial Guinea. You can, after 2 years of legal residence in Spain, you can apply for Spanish citizenship and then wait to obtain that citizenship. Okay. Very, very common question, especially from Americans who have Ibero-American heritage. They have their passports. If your parents are Mexican, for example, or from Puerto Rico, but you were born in the States, you can obtain your citizenship by origin because you need to be citizen of any of those countries by origin, not by residence. If you have absolutely no ties to Puerto Rico, for example, and you move to the island of Puerto Rico for 1 year as an American, after 1 year, you can become a Puerto Rican citizen by residence. Okay, but that certificate will not help you to benefit from the fast track nationality. Another very common question is, can I apply with my American passport at a consulate in the States, obtain the residence, the non-lucrative visa and residence, and move to Spain, and then after 2 years use my Mexican passport to apply for citizenship? The answer is yes. It is the opposite that the law says, but the foreigner office are allowing it for several years and nothing has changed, but it could change tomorrow. This is the situation. So if you're planning to do so, don't wait too long. Again, what Spainguru can do for you. In Spainguru, you can find all the help and content and the community, okay, that you need. If you plan to do it yourself, to apply by yourself, it is absolutely possible. A lot of people do it. Actually, half of the people do it. But still you will need services like sworn translations. You will need health insurance that are combined for a non-lucrative visa. Potentially you decide to go with the help of immigration experts. I only recommend the ones that I personally vetted for many years with stellar reviews. You will need medical certificates as well, as we went through the different solutions that you could obtain in Spainguru or outside. Private apostille services, and I have more than 100 services that could be useful for you moving to Spain. Even Spanish online courses, whatever you need, you can find it on Spainguru. And of course, you have the YouTube channel to stay informed. I publish one single video every day. There's a newsletter that I send every single Monday at 10:15 Central European Time, every single week with the top blog posts and videos that I published. So all that, and joining, of course, the Spanish Non-Lucrative Visa Facebook group, which is the largest out there with 17,000 members. And always, when you ask something there in that group, mention to your consulate because, of course, the information and the answers will change a lot depending on where you apply. A bonus information I can show you here. Half of the people I have asked people in different groups, like, have you used legal help for applying for the non-lucrative visa? 80 people voted. 50% said they did it themselves. 50% they said they used legal help. Then I asked, for the ones who use legal help, do you think it was worth spending that money? And 80% said roughly 80% said yes. I know that below says 71%, but after a few days, it actually got to 80%, in fact. So yeah, this is a bonus information. And of course, if you want to connect with me, I will be so extremely happy that you send me a message for whatever you need at any given time. And I'm happy to point you in the right direction. Sometimes I will tell you, look, I don't know the answer. Please post it on the Facebook group, or here are some lawyers if you need them, or these are some services. I will tell you what I think is the best for your specific situation. And of course, I told you, join the Spanish Non Lucrative Visa Facebook group, watch the YouTube channel to stay informed, and join the newsletter that I send every single week. And remember, the content of this webinar is for information purposes only, and it's not legal advice. The requirements listed here are not official. Check your specific consulate requirements and BLS office if they use that company for the processing of the visas. And as I said, the only thing I ask in exchange for this webinar is if you can leave me a Google review. If you think the information that I share here could be valuable, gives you an view of the process of this visa, you think it could be helpful for others to attend this webinar, please leave a Google review, and I will be very, very grateful with you. Now, let's go with the Q&A session. And I see, thank you very much, Estelle. Thank you very much for attending here, all of you, and for staying until the end of this presentation. I try to really go as fast as possible because I'm adding slides every time, and now with the proposed changes, it's becoming really, really huge. So it's very, very hard to summarize everything and condense everything. First question, Estelle. When we get the visa and have, of course, rented an apartment, is it easy or possible to change apartments in the 5 years before getting a permanent residence in Spain? I answered this at the beginning, but just for others, if they join later, as I said, legally, you can move within Spain wherever you want, okay? Just to make sure that the certificado de empadronamiento has to be in place when you renew. This is the only thing, okay? But it counts. If you live in Spain, within the borders of Spain, it counts for long-term residency, if that is the question, okay? Now, of course, now we have a problem with housing in Spain, and changing the apartments or houses in Spain in highly demanded areas, and especially during high season, can be challenging. But I'm talking about the market. I'm not talking about the immigration aspect of it. Hope I answered that question. Rene is asking, hello, send my bags requires the resident certificate you obtain from the town hall or police station, but I cannot obtain that until I am in Spain. So what is the best way to transport your belongings? First of all, well, Send My Bags is one of the services that I proudly recommend. You can find a 5% discount if you use Spainguru's link. Well, this certificate, I think you need it if you want to avoid taxes, but they give you up to 6 months, I think, from when you receive the goods. But look, I'm not 100% sure. This is not my expertise, and really, this is not part of the non-lucrative visa webinar. So I'm going like really out of the way for this. But they give you 6 months, okay, I think, and then you provide your certificado de empadronamiento, proving that you are in Spain, and then they pay you back the taxes that they charge you at the beginning. This is what people have been reporting, but please don't quote me on this. Ask on the group, because a lot of people went through this. I'm trying to repeat what they said. Ray, thank you for joining today and for asking something. Can I get my non-lucrative visa with a letter from my employer saying that within a month I will no longer be working for them, rather than leave my job to apply for the NLB? We went through this. It is very consulate sensitive. In the USA, it's much easier, but it can happen anywhere, okay? Please ask in the Facebook group for people that were in the same situation. Mention your consulate, okay? And people will tell you. But if you're in the US, normally with an affidavit saying that, stating and promising that you will stop working upon granting of the non-lucrative visa, and that you promise to stop working on a certain date, etc., and you notarize it and translate it, okay? Usually normal translation, not sworn translation, but it depends on the consulate. As I say, it varies a lot. That would be enough, but it depends where you are, what they want to receive. If I receive income from a business that I have invested in, Sarah asks, but I am not actively working, Does this qualify as passive income? Yes. If you don't have active involvement in the daily operations of that business, it's considered passive income. Now, what happened here? Display. I have a similar question as I plan to retire on August 1st, and I'm worried about when to apply as we will be giving us our rental at the end of August. So I think it was related to the previous questions or answer. Thank you, Vicky, for asking. Now, Nancy Barron. On my tax returns, I only have one sum income, which consists of alimony. But on the bank statements, they are separate deposits into my account as alimony payments. I hope I'm pronouncing well. And a separate lesser amount that is a reimbursement for my health insurance that is part of my alimony arrangement, which the IRS considers income. Will the disparity be a red flag when? Whoa, this is a very technical question. I am so sorry, but I just can't answer that. I'm not quite sure what alimony is even. So probably everyone attending this webinar knows it, but me, I haven't read that word very often. But please ask in the group. And of course, if you plan for if you don't get a good answer for it in the group, potentially consider going with legal advice about how to present your bank statements and your tax returns, because there are ways to present the movements in a way that makes sense. Usually, a lot of people explain complex situations with their letter of intent, and they say like this. They present their bank statements and everything, and in the letter of intent, they explain what has happened. To the officer in order to give more clarity. But I'm sorry, I just don't understand exactly your question. It is beyond my knowledge. I'm sorry for that. Is there a tax treaty between Canada and Spain in terms of public pensions? Well, there is a double taxation treaty between them. In terms of public pensions, I don't know. I know there is for USA, but I don't know about Canada. That's a very good question to ask in the group and see what people answer. In Italy, for example, public pensions from Canada are not taxed in Italy. Is this the same in Spain? Good question. Potentially, yes. We have to read that treaty. Is the 28,000 euros after tax net income or gross income? It's gross income normally. I think 28,800 euros as of 2024. It may change any time. It is gross. Nancy, if I have a part-time job, minuscule income of less than $1,000 a month. Well, that's not minuscule in Spain. Should I stop? As I said, you don't have to stop your income, but you can't use that income as proof of funding. You can promise that you're going to stop, but for sure, the consulate will notice that you have active income of $1,000 a month. That's not minuscule at all. In my humble opinion, I'm not an officer, and I don't know exactly how they will consider, but I am almost positive this is the answer you will receive from anyone. Connie, thanks for attending and for asking. I'm retired and I am a landscape photographer and sell my photos online in my website. Would that consider a job? Well, there is a gray area here, which is like, for example, for content that you have already published, it is considered passive income, like royalties, for example, and that's it. But if you continue creating and you continue uploading and you continue working as a photographer, and they can prove that, you could be potentially in a trouble. So my recommendation would be take as many photos as you can before getting your NLV, and so they don't consider it active income. Emma, thank you for attending. Can we use funds from a house sale to apply for the NLV? Yeah, definitely. But you have to have them. You have to have the house sold and the money there, readily available, not the promise of selling a house. Can you help with problems specific to Jersey, Channel Island? I don't know what problems are specific to Jersey. So the best also when you ask in the community or you ask your lawyer, just be specific. What is your problem? Exactly. What exactly do you want to know? Because maybe you think it's specific to Jersey, but maybe it is something that someone has answered. Do I have to be Spanish resident? Mimi asks to receive inheritance from my parents in Spain. I don't think so. I don't think so. But I have some inheritance. I recommend an inheritance expert on Spainguru.es, first of all. And I have created some content about it. I have written content about it. And the thing is that um, the best is to have two wills, okay? One will in Spain, okay, for the assets in Spain, and have also will wherever you are. Okay, so this is the best. But for sure, if the assets are in Spain, the best is to have a will in Spain because the inheritance laws are here quite different. But if you search Spainguru.es space inheritance, you will have a lot of content about it. Nancy, question: will this be taped for viewing later? My connection has dropped a few times. Oh, sorry to hear that. I'm recording this, but I'm not sure I will have the time to upload it fast, unfortunately. But there is a video that I have recorded a couple of months ago that has, let's say, 70% of what I have said today, 75%, without all the updates, of course, which are many. That is online, and you will receive the link to that recording as soon as possible. But my plan is to upload a new video when we have the proposed changes, okay, approved, because there's too many conjectures here, too many possibilities that we don't know how they will end. So I don't want really to put so much content about this that is not clear what's going to happen. Do you happen to open a Spanish? Do you have to open a Spanish bank account as soon as you arrive in Spain, or can you wait? Of course, you can wait. It is just a recommendation, a very strong recommendation, extremely strong. You can also open an N26 bank account. You have a cashback in Spainguru.es. N26 is a fintech. It's a German fintech. It's huge, and they offer you IBAN, Spanish IBAN, which is the account number for Spain, and you can use it to pay anything. Okay, even taxes now. And yeah, I think you get 25 euros if you use my referral link and you spend with their card 25 euros. You get 25 euros, and of course I get a little kickback for it. And people usually combine it with a Wise account for currency conversion from dollars or GBP or Canadian dollars. You send the money to Wise, you do the conversion there, and then you send the money from Wise in euros already to the N26, for example, IBAN or your brick and mortar bank that you have in Spain. This is what people usually do. And of course, I also have a Wise account referral code that will give you a free transfer for up to 500 British pounds, or I don't know, on $550. So yeah, definitely you should go to Spainguru and use those referral codes. It is a recommendation, not a requirement. Could you explain again the numbers of renewals required again? Well, now it is after 1 year of residence, you renew for 2, then for 2 more, and eventually, if you need an extraordinary period of 2 more, that usually people use to apply for the long-term residence if they didn't comply with their minimum stay requirements. In Galicia, they can do this third renewal. And now the proposed changes is instead of 2 renewals of 2 years each, to do 1 single renewal of 4 years after the first year of residence. I hope that clears up the question. Sarah is asking, I understand that I must sign something stating I will not work. That depends on the consulate, really. Some consulates don't ask you anything. However, you commented that once in Spain, many people do end up working remotely for a non-Spanish company under the radar. Well, it's not really under the radar because they pay taxes on that income. So it is under the radar of the immigration office, but absolutely on the radar of the tax office in Spain, who are happy to charge them for their global income. Okay. When you file your Spanish taxes, it will be obvious that people are working. Not sure how the NLV people are able to do this without losing their visa. Nothing happens. I'm telling you, nothing happens. The thing is that when you renew, you can't use that income as proof of funding because it is active income. Okay. Of course, I'm not saying you should do it. This is the situation today. And the digital nomad visa is a more suitable visa type, a residency type for this kind of situation. And this is what every lawyer will tell you. But I'm trying to show you the possibilities and the complexities and ambiguities of the Spanish bureaucracy. Estelle, at the moment, at the 2-year renewal, would I have to show in my bank account that I have 28,800 euros twice? In other words, 57,600 euros present in my bank account, even when 3 government public pensions. No, if you have passive income, you can complete if you need with a lump sum, okay, or other type of incomes. As long as it is not active income, you can use it as proof of funding. So, for example, if you have a pension of how much is 57,600 euros divided 2? 57,600 divided 2. If you have a sorry, if you have a pension that pays you 30,000 euros per year, you will be good. You don't need to show extra. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. Adam Hoffman, thank you for joining today and for asking. Any timeline for San Francisco or Los Angeles adopting BLS? I don't know. I thought they were going to do it before the end of this year, but nothing is quick. But when it happens, usually it is quite messy for a couple of months until they cooperate efficiently. Andrew Papworth, thank you for joining. Great webinar, thank you. Please leave me a Google review. Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, a call interrupted my viewing as you were explaining this point. We are from the UK. What happens after 5 years of NLV regarding residency citizenship? So if you are from the UK, first of all, you need 10 years of residency in Spain to apply for citizenship by residence. But after 5 years, you could apply for the long term, also known as permanent residence, as long as you weren't out of Spain for more than 10 months in the previous 5 years. Okay? Those 10 months, you can be out of Spain consecutively or anywhere, any way you want. Okay? But the addition of the total time outside of Spain cannot be more than 10 months in 5 years. Otherwise, you will not be able to. Well, you can apply for the long-term residence after 5 years, but they will deny it, okay, because you weren't enough time in Spain. So some people renew their non-lucrative residence one more time, called extraordinary time, which in Galicia they don't allow you, for 2 extra years in case you didn't comply with the minimum stay requirements. But now, as we said, they instead of doing a renewal of 2 years, they will do a renewal of 4 years. So things might be a bit crazy. Hope that answered your question, Andrew. Scott, thank you for joining and for asking. Do we need a Spain address at the time of application? Depends on your consulate. We're looking to buy a home eventually, but may rent at first. Of course, depends on the consulate, the requirements that they're asking. The best is to ask the community, for people who have recently applied in your consulate, what the requirements were, because some consulates can get very tricky with that. Maybe they ask you to show a rental contract in advance of a certain minimum of time. Some only will require you to say which province you intend to move to. Okay, so be careful with that. On Spainguru, yes, you can use a referral code that gives you 20% discount on your tenant fee with spotahome.com, which is a company which is a hybrid between Airbnb and Idealista, the Spanish real estate portal. Basically, it's like Airbnb. You can rent a property without visiting it. It is checked by their team, and you can rent it in advance. And the rentals are for months, not for days or nights like Airbnb. It is a midterm rental platform. and could be a solution for you if you require a rental before arriving to Spain in order to apply for non-lucrative visa. What is the best money transfer option? Asks Bill, or company for USD to euros. As I said before, look on Spainguru.es. If you go to financial services, you will find mainly all the currency converter um, companies online out there with referral codes and discounts. You can find them all. First of all, depends how much money you want to transfer, how often, how easy you want the platform to be. Okay. And it depends where you receive the money. All right. So if it's then the different platforms will be better or worse, okay, for that specific transfer. What I normally do if I have to transfer an important sum of money, let's say, I will shop around. Okay, so for example, currency converters is good for big sums. Most of people use Wise to do the currency conversion, and then they send it to Spanish IBAN already in euros, which is very convenient, very easy to use. The user experience is very, very good. I am a heavy user of Wise, but it has protection until 20,000 euros. I think their protection is not that big if you have 20,000 euros at a certain time. So it really depends. It really depends. You need to shop around and find out if it's an important sum before doing it, because conditions can vary a lot. But I certainly recommend all those services listed on Spainguru's financial money transfer services. Vicky, thank you for joining today. What things could be different in the San Francisco consulate changes to BLS? Well, you need to ask people who are using BLS. For example, Miami. They may require different the extra fees for different things. The communication means might be different because so far it has been only by mail. But now they started receiving submissions, physical submissions in their office. So things can change a little bit, and especially that it could be a little bit disorganized the first months, but then everything gets standardized, and once it's rolling, it tends to work well. So that would be it. That's the end of the questions. I hope I provided the answers that you were seeking for. If not, you can send me an email to hello@spainguru.es, and here, and I'm sure I can point you out in the right direction. Maybe something I forgot when I answered the question that later, thinking with the email in front, I can send you the links for the content, and also I can always recommend you professionals who have been personally vetted that can help you out potentially for the different steps in this application. Again, thank you so much for joining today. Please leave me a Google review if you think this webinar was good, it was helpful, and you think that could help others. And big recommendation, stay informed because there could be big changes coming up next week. And yeah, I'll see you around. I'll be in the Facebook group. Join the Spainguru Facebook group and Non Lucrative Visa Facebook group if you have none yet. And yeah, post everything. Always mention your consulate because things vary a lot. Always mention the consulate where you're posting. And if you are shy to join, don't forget that you can join and post anonymously. If you don't want to show your name to the community, it is absolutely understandable. I'm not against anonymous posts. You can do them as long as the question is legit and valid and interesting and that people can contribute. Absolutely, you should do it because there's so much information going around, and because you need fresh information also. A lot of people say, like, what are you doing in Facebook? You should go to a lawyer. Why don't you spend? Look, you need to, in my opinion, you should have a lawyer, and you should also check the fresh information because the consulates are very, very different, unfortunately, and things change very, very fast. And even the best lawyer cannot be updated of every single thing all the time. So be careful with that. But most of people get approved. Don't be scared. Just make sure that you read the official requirements, and I'm sure you're gonna get your non-lucrative visa soon, and you will fulfill your dreams to be in Spain. All right, that was it. Thank you so much for joining, and see you around. You know where to find me. Bye bye. Take care.